Life sometimes writes stories so incredible they seem straight out of a Hollywood movie. This particular tale is one such narrative, utterly unbelievable yet absolutely true. In late 2005, Candy Williams, a schoolteacher, relocated to St. Petersburg, Florida, seeking a fresh start after losing her parents. Recently bereaved and looking for a new chapter, Candy quickly connected with Jovan Collier, a 37-year-old construction company manager. They discovered a shared tragedy. Both had lost their parents. Jovan's parents had tragically died in a car accident caused by a drunk driver when he was just a child. Their relationship progressed at lightning speed. Within 3 months of meeting, they were living together and seriously discussing marriage. Jovan disclosed he had been previously married and had a son from that relationship. He explained that he had been divorced for over 5 years and that his former family lived in Indiana, about 1,500 kilometers from Florida. Because of this, he claimed he frequently traveled to Indiana on weekends to visit his son. However, this narrative was far from the complete truth. Candy eventually uncovered that Jovan was still legally married, effectively exposing his earlier lie about being divorced. Hurt and betrayed, she decided to end their relationship and pack her bags. Surprisingly, Jovan managed to convince her that his current marriage was meaningless and that he would file for divorce soon, which led to their reconciliation. This time, Jovan chose a different approach: radical honesty. He revealed another hidden aspect of his past. He had actually been married twice, and in addition to his son, he also had an adult daughter. Jovan added that he had lost touch with his daughter over the past 6 years and now wanted to rebuild their relationship. But his revelations didn't stop there. He mentioned recently seeing his mother, which shocked Candy, given his earlier claim that his parents had died in a car accident during his childhood. Jovan clarified that those were his adoptive parents, as he had been adopted when just 5 months old. His birth mother, Linda Zavorsky, became pregnant at 18. Unmarried and abandoned by the child's father who vanished upon learning of the pregnancy, Linda faced significant family pressure. Her parents feared the social stigma of having an unwed daughter with a child. Consequently, they compelled Linda to place Jovan in an orphanage immediately after his birth, from where the Collier family later adopted him. By 2004, Linda Zavorsky was living in Atlanta, Georgia, working as a real estate agent and married to a plastic surgeon. That year, she discovered changes in adoption laws that allowed biological parents to potentially locate children they had previously given up. In July 2004, Linda submitted the necessary documentation to the adoption committee to obtain her biological son's contact information. Approximately a year later, Linda received a phone call from Jovan Collier, who believed she was his mother. They exchanged emails for several weeks before meeting in spring 2005. A subsequent DNA test confirmed their biological connection, and from that point forward, they grew close. Linda introduced her newly found son to her husband, relatives, and friends. That same year, Jovan attended his grandmother's 80th birthday party for the first time. In summer 2005, a construction site inspection assignment brought him to Atlanta, where his mother lived. This opportunity allowed Linda and Jovan to grow closer, and he even moved in with her and her husband. However, their harmonious relationship was short-lived. After a couple of months living in Linda's house, Jovan discovered aspects of her personality he hadn't previously seen. According to him, Linda was extremely quarrelsome with a challenging temperament. Unable to tolerate her constant arguments, he moved out and cut off all communication with her. After reconciling with Candy, their relationship stabilized. They resumed living together, and in 2009, after 4 years together, they finally decided to get married. Their wedding plans were tentatively set for after 2010. In March 2009, Jovan traveled to Atlanta for several weeks to inspect a construction site. After a few days, he stopped answering phone calls. Soon, calls to his phone were not going through at all. Concerned about not being able to reach her boyfriend, Candy decided to contact Linda, Jovan's mother, who also lived in Atlanta. When Linda's husband answered the call, Candy inquired about Jovan. His response was shocking. The man said that after learning about the murder, they had ceased all communication with Jovan. On that day, Candy Williams uncovered the darkest secret of Jovan Collier, the man she planned to marry. In 1968, Hans and Sally Zimmer, residents of Chicago, adopted a boy named Peter. 4 years later, they adopted a second child, Perry. In 1983, the Zimmer family relocated to Wisconsin. About a month after moving, on May 24, Wisconsin police received an urgent call. A neighboring resident reported hearing disturbing screams from the Zimmer household and urged law enforcement to investigate. Upon arrival, officers encountered a gruesome scene. Near the back entrance lay Hans Zimmer's body. The 48-year-old father had been shot 5 times and was found in a massive blood pool. Inside the kitchen, they discovered Sally Zimmer's corpse, the 44-year-old mother who had sustained 15 stab wounds. The horrific discoveries continued. Upstairs in the bedroom, officers found 10-year-old Perry Zimmer, who had been stabbed 25 times. The only missing family member was 14-year-old Peter Zimmer, immediately becoming the primary focus of a widespread police search. Later that same day, a hotel manager in Kansas, approximately 500 kilometers from the crime scene, contacted local authorities. The hotel manager grew suspicious when a young man, approximately 13 to 16 years old, checked in using a credit card that wasn't his. Police arrived, arrested the youth, and confirmed his identity as Peter Zimmer, the sole surviving Zimmer family member. He was charged with murdering his adoptive family and faced immediate legal proceedings. The prosecutor sought to try Peter as an adult, but Wisconsin law mandated that a 14-year-old's case be heard in juvenile court. In July 1983, 2 months after the murders, Peter was found guilty with mitigating circumstances. He claimed the murder occurred after an argument with his adoptive father, who he alleged frequently physically abused him. Peter explained that after another beating, he lost control. The judge considered the young man to be in a state of temporary insanity. Consequently, the court sentenced him to a juvenile correctional facility until he turned 19. During his detention, Peter underwent psychological evaluation and passed required mental competency tests. On July 2, 1987, just days after turning 19, Peter Zimmer was released, having served only 4.5 years for killing 3 people. Immediately upon release, he changed his name to Jovan Collier and moved to Florida, securing a job at a construction company. Jovan Collier got married for the first time shortly after his release, and a year later, he had a daughter. He divorced his first wife in 1993 and remarried the following year. In this marriage, he had a son whom he insisted on naming Peter. In 2000, his second family moved to Indiana, while he remained in Florida, where he later met Candy Williams, who was to become his third wife. After Candy discovered Jovan's most significant secret, he attempted to contact her again. However, by then, she was no longer concerned about his disappearance but feared for her own safety. She began investigating more of Jovan's secrets and discovered multiple dating site profiles. In his computer, she found correspondence with a woman living in Atlanta. It didn't take her long to realize she had been living a lie for the past 4 years. The woman immediately packed her belongings and left Jovan's home. Subsequently, she sought a restraining order against him, as knowing his dark secret made her fear for her life. Jovan began bombarding Candy with electronic messages and sending various packages to her home, but she ignored his attempts to make contact. Eventually, he broke into her house, but she managed to escape. Jovan Collier was arrested but released on bail the same day and subsequently disappeared from police radar. After Jovan's disappearance, Candy was more terrified than ever. She saw his face in every stranger, and ultimately, in an attempt to escape her stalker, she was forced to move to another city. Jovan Collier was ultimately arrested 3 months after his disappearance, in October 2009. He was charged with stalking and sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. In 2012, Jovan Collier, also known as Peter Zimmer, was released. Presumably he had cooled down and abandoned attempts to contact Candy Williams, as he left Florida and moved to San Diego, California after his release. Despite multiple attempts by journalists to communicate with him, he consistently refused to discuss the murder of his adoptive family, leaving his true motive for such a heinous crime a mystery to many. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the next video.